different will the future be? And it's up to us to decide, it's up to us to create. There are some things that change and some things that are different. The nature of who we are as humans has not changed over the years, and that's evolving. We've seen new facets of who we are become apparent over the last 10 years as we've been connected, as we've expressed ourselves in new ways and connected in new ways. But the fundamentals of who we are change, but we have a choice now around the future that we create. But in a way, the question should not be how different will the future be, but how different could the future be, and how different should the future be. And one of the fundamental shifts is the rise of technology. And in this video, we can see that there are some robots and there are some humans. And if we look, we can tell the difference between which one is which. But this blurring boundary is moving fast because humans are inventors. That is the nature of who we are. From the first tools we created, we have built technologies. And we now, more recently, these technologies we are creating are absolutely astounding. They are changing the nature of how they're mimicking us. They are changing the nature of who we are as humans. So today we need to think about what is it that is possible. And we've already heard some of these imaginings, some of these possibilities we can see for this wondrous city, for this nation, for Asia, the most vibrant, dynamic area of the world, where all of this energy, the possibilities, the growth, and the intelligence is being applied to create value. So what I want to very quickly do this morning is first of all look at the acceleration of technology, looking at the shift of power in society, looking at how the structure of business is changing. Look at just a few of the extraordinary possibilities that are in front of us. And finally, the leadership is required to be able to create the future we can imagine. So if we look at the acceleration of technology, we have long known that there is a exponential growth. This, if we understand the Mandelbrot set, we can go deeper and deeper. We've all experienced exponential growth in technology in our time. Every year there is a 32% increase in connectivity. Every year there is a 51% increase in processing power. Every year there is a 64% increase in the cost effectiveness of data. All of this expanding, not just from where we are today, but going forward in time. And that means, amongst other things, that not just are we getting an extraordinary growth in everyone, the people who are connected to the amazing wonders of information in the world, but these little devices, which are shown on a human finger and next to a human hair, are all connected. We can start to get information from everywhere, from our bodies, from inside our bodies, from the ground which we are treading on, from everything that we see. And that data gives us power to be able to feed machines. Now we have the processing power where we can real-time generate things that look like humans, but are not humans in this case, where we are blurring the boundaries between what it is that we can see in terms of the real world around us and what it is that we can create that emulates that around us. So this
find the best credit card for them.
Is
really
not a real
person.
person.
Looking into credit cards recently.
Is having a conversation.
What coincidence? Really?
Yeah, but it's really overwhelming. There's so many credit cards out there, so many offers, options. I don't really know what to do.
Oh, Shantanu, I completely understand.
So that woman was, of course, not a real human, but she was created by a man called Mark Sagar, based out of Auckland, who he won an Oscar, or 2 Oscars, one for creating the Na'vi, the natives in the film Avatar, to be able to create human expression. So now what he is doing is be able to use those understandings of expressing human emotion to be able to map that. So we're starting to get these new ways in which we can interface with machines. Because indeed, this power of technology is one thing, but where it starts to become really, the real juncture is saying, how do humans interface with technology? So now we can have conversations. We're starting to move. We've moved from televisions and computers through to tablets and smartphones, where we'll now have new interfaces, where we'll have glasses. If we wear glasses, very soon we'll be able to add more information, to interface more richly with the world around us. And indeed now we can be able to use our thoughts to control machines. And already those who are physically disabled can now use their minds to be able to, in this case of this woman, for the first time in 15 years, take a sip of coffee for her own volition. But moving forward, more of us will have this ability to interface with the extraordinary exponential growth of technologies to give us the powers that we desire, to give us the power to control things. Now, power is shifting in society in an extraordinary way. And that power is a shift of power to individuals, from corporations to customers, from employers to employees, from governments to cities, from health systems to patients. In every way, we are seeing this power shifting to the individual, and I believe we've seen this, certainly in the Philippines and many other countries in this region. And this has been driven partly because we can see the possibilities as never before. The information flows tell us what we can expect, what we should expect for ourselves. To be able to expect, amongst other things, quality of what we see, quality of service. To be able to go back to the idea of experience our lives on this planet and what it is we experience. And partly as the businesses that serve us, partly as the governments that provide us, to be able to help us have a richer quality of life. And that is a basic expectation. And it's not that long ago that we struggled to survive for many of us. And now we expect that for us, for our children, for those around us, that we have this extraordinary quality of life. And this has been driven by participation. And we can see that in the region, we've had more and more people connected. Just over the last year, so you can't see that at the bottom, but over 300 million more people in the region have access to smartphones, have access to connectivity. And this means not only that we can receive information or chat with friends, but we have a voice. And it really is not that long ago that we were only recipients of information from television and newspapers and so on. Now, people have a voice, and when that voice should be heard, that can be amplified as never before. And what we expect is a sustainable world, and this sustainability, it's often worth coming back to this idea, the idea that what we do can continue and will continue moving forward. It can be sustained. Business can be sustained, governments are sustained, societies can be sustained, and that is a very basic expectation when power flows to the individual and can be expressed. And to support that, we expect transparency. That corporations and their activities can be seen. We can see what goes behind that. For governments, they are transparent. What the decisions are, how those will be made, and the accountability that flows from that. So if we look at the future and the extension of these expectations, we will see inevitably both that power shifting more to that individuals, more and more ways in which we can have that democratic expression, and the possibilities of the power flowing and the institutions serving more and more those individuals as we progress. Our business is changing more. If we look at business and how value is created, the structure of that is changing. And this is because of the rise of the networked world. And as we are more connected, we see more flows towards this network structures in society. So certainly in terms of the technology, the internet is a network which is growing and expanding in many ways. Society has always been a network, but that has been amplified and connected. Organizations have shifted from hierarchies to networks as people can communicate directly. As with network science has risen over the last 20 years, we've understood that in fact a lot of our biology is in fact built on networks. Our infrastructure is built on networks. So we're living fundamentally in a networked world. Now this has led to the rise of platforms, which is the structure in business which basically taps the power of the network world. We're familiar with your Ubers and Airbnbs and Netflix and so on, which are some of the rising powers. And what they do is they are the platforms. So it's worth revising what a platform actually is. So a platform enables value-creating interactions between people outside the organization. And to do that, they need an open infrastructure, something that people can tap into, access easily, and also some rules and regulations, some guidelines, some kind of governance to support that. So this creates essentially an entirely new model for an organization. Instead of creating products and services, whether that be government services or other products or services of business, business becomes around how is it that we enable others to connect to create value. It's a re-envisaging of saying, in a network world, we don't just sit there and sell things. We actually enable value-creating interactions. And not all of the platforms that we've seen are necessarily all completely a boon to society, but we can use that concept to be able to create value in new ways. Because now we are seeing the shift from now business and an organization to ecosystems. And for every business leader, the issue now, the imperative is not how do I create value in my business, but how do I create value across an entire ecosystem to recognize the breadth of that ecosystem with your customers, with your suppliers, with your partners, with the people in your community, to understand that ecosystem, see how can we create as much value as possible across that entire ecosystem, and how do we take an appropriate share of that value for ourselves. And the more that is maximized, the more that breadth of thinking occurs, the more we're seeing. And this is where we are seeing that the structure of business is moving to this ecosystem system and this way frame of saying, how do I create value for others and participate in that? And where now we are seeing that that individuals can come together in new ways. As we're connected, we can organize ourselves, flash mobs, or ways to be able to come and seize help when help is required in the community. We can organize ourselves. We don't need large institutions anymore. And that's, again, one of the big shifts. The shift from the large monolithic organizations to dynamic groups connecting, to individuals connect. We don't need the institutions as we did in the past. And that shift of power to individuals is also one about individuals connecting to be able to create within ecosystems value that was never seen before. There are so many possibilities that will be explored today, tomorrow, and beyond. And so I think just a handful of those possibilities. And one of the critical ones is that we design work for humans. For so many years, we have dehumanized work. We've put work in boxes, we've defined it, we've been able to make it easily outsourced, to be able to make it easily automated. So now the focus is saying, let's look at expertise and creativity and relationships, those things that are so deeply human. And in a way, the opportunity is that the technology of automation, in fact, allows us to express and discover our humanity as never before. But this requires us to design work that way. We need to not just say, this job can be automated or not, but what is the future of how value can be created? How do we tap the most out of human possibilities? Their imagination, their dreams, their possibilities, the ways in which they can relate and empathize and bring people out of them and change behaviors. These are such human behaviors, but we need to design work and design organizations to be able to do that. Of course, given carbon impact, given climate change, we need to accelerate our shifts to sustainable energy. And we've already seen this from 2013 through to 2017. The cost of solar power is now well below the cost of creating new carbon plants based on coal or natural gas. And it is getting close to the point where it is more efficient to build a new solar plant than it is to be able to run existing coal-based infrastructure. We're also seeing that the cost of batteries going down, that which enables, amongst other things, electric vehicles to be able to give the power to that. These were some of the projections, and in fact, all of those have been exceeded. Now seeing, in fact, less than half or a third of the predictions in terms of the cost of efficiency of batteries today. So we're seeing this extraordinary power, the energy going into that, the the desire to be able to create that is being able to accelerate our shift, maybe far more rapidly than we could expect out of carbon-creating energy. Whenever we think about the good old days, we have to remember that our health was not what it was, and this just shows the child mortality by country. That is one of our extraordinary successes as a modern society, bringing the health of children and infants. It really has been a massive shift. So this is part, again, there's so many health issues we need to face, but looking at the potential is to begin to shift. Now the way it's looking at being able to make people be alive, to save their health, so many fundamental health issues, be able to focus on wellness. How can we have doctors not just helping people who are sick, but to be able to say, how do we give ourselves more energy, more vitality, more possibilities, more potential to express the fullness of ourselves, not fixing what is wrong, but making better what is possible through an extraordinary array of possibilities. When we look at today and the past, at who we have been as society, one of the indictments of ourselves is the extraordinary amount of waste we have created. From plastics being created, going out into the oceans, polluting our world. And this requires a shift, and this is a possibility, and this is where we don't know how different we can be, but we must be, is be able to focus on, it is possible that everything we create gets recycled, gets reused, be able to create these, the circular economy where what we create comes back and is created again, rather than just us having an output of ourselves as a waste. So this is where possibility is to shift. Maybe zero waste is a little very aspirational, but certainly to come down to be able to say that our impact on the planet is not one of creating things which are wanted, but creating things which become part of the environment, part of what we do. So I mentioned before platforms. And governments, I think it is safe to say, are highly inefficient. But now what we need to be able to say is, what is the role of the government? The role of the government is to help us create the society we want. And that requires helping people who are disadvantaged to be able to structure things, to be able to have our protection, to have security. And all of these things can be enabled with the idea of government as a platform. The role of government is not to collect taxes and then spend it, but the role of the government is to connect those who can help to those who need to be helped. To be able to be an enabler, to be a platform, to be a connector, to be a facilitator of bringing together what is possible. And absolutely, I think it's imperative that government shifts this way because of the costs of being able to do so. We're starting to see more and more opportunity to govern, to facilitate people working together. And in a way, this is an expression of what we can think of as this collective intelligence. That is a dream. That is a possibility where we are more than the set of ourselves as individuals. We bring together our insights in ways through all sorts of mechanisms to be able to align ourselves, to have the dream, to be able to create that because our intelligence comes together in one way. We're looking at the leadership that is required to be able to create this. Because our destiny is not in the stars, something for us to be told what it is by me or anyone else. Our destiny is in ourselves, as William Shakespeare well told us. Joseph Campbell was a comparative mythologist, and he studied the myths and the stories of all the peoples around the world, and he found that there is one story that is the same across all of us. And that is one where people in an ordinary world is called, hears the call to go beyond their everyday life, to be able to go through struggles and challenges and be helped to finally find something that is of value to theirs and bring that back to their community. And he called it the hero's journey. And we all, in these extraordinarily challenging and times of extraordinary possibility, need to hear that call to go beyond, to be heroes and heroines, and come back and seize that and bring that back for all of us. So if we look at the future, how different will the future be? I believe that we are at dawn of a new era, which is created by the visions and dreams of people like you, by you yourselves. And over these next couple of days, I'm sure that we will envisage an extraordinary future and act to create it. Thank you.
So I work as a futurist, and my definition of a futurist is someone who helps people and organizations to think about the future so that we can act better in the present. So part of that is really to be able to stimulate, to be able to provoke, to be able to help people think through what is an extraordinarily complex and really overwhelming amount that is of change we have today, in ways that we can make sense of that so that we can say, this is what we can do to be able to create the future that we want. Well, I don't believe in crystal balls. I think the future is unpredictable. We can't know what will happen. But people don't have the time to think about the future. They're just caught in the present, it's busyness. So I'm fortunate that I have the luxury to spend all of my time looking out, scanning, seeing what may happen, so that I can see and bring to people's attention some of the things that they need to be looking at, but also the ways in which to think about it. So I try to avoid making predictions because I don't believe we can predict, but what we can do is to look at directions and trends and opportunities and possibilities to be able to, where possible, to guide us to a positive frame. There's so many challenges, so many things that we should be concerned about, but we also need to think about and be aware of and focus on the possibilities, the things that we can make better in our world, and to really point to those. So broadly it's around education, and so if we look at the future of work, look at the future of society, really all of that comes back to essentially education, how it is that we learn more, discover our potential, to be able to learn what's going on in the world. So I think there's many mechanisms for this, many ways in which we need to think about education. Part of it is to use technologies to complement human teachers, to be able to make things more available to people, to use our existing institutions of schools and universities, but also to focus on just every opportunity where we can give people the opportunity to see what is possible for themselves, to discover what it is that they enjoy the most, that they are most passionate about. And so in a way we need to frame all of society around this education, not least educating people around what people are possible, what is their potential. So one of the key things here is, I distinguish between capabilities and skills. So capabilities, the underlying things such as our ability to learn, our adaptability, our ability to relate to other people, the ability to communicate well. And on top of that, we have specific skills, which might be in technology or in business or design and so on. So we need to have our educational institutions explicitly look at these underlying capabilities. And so at the moment, if you look at the curriculum of almost any school or university, where are the courses on empathy? And we don't necessarily need something called empathetic thinking, but we do need to make this part of this is the mission. Our objectives are to create people who actually can understand people better. Interestingly, there is working with autistic children, there's a lot of work being done to teach empathy, but arguably those kinds of skills and lessons and education can be useful to all of us. And so these are things which we are learning, these tools and methodologies. These should be part of our whole path. These are the underlying capabilities we need to learn, not just for our social value or our work value, but to be more fulfilled as humans.
Yeah, that's right.
So this is a mindset, it's an outlook, it's a way of thinking. And so from not just the boards of directors and the executives, but also the investors in those organizations, to realize firstly that the financial objectives of the organizations are completely aligned with creating a better society in which those organizations can function. And it's that understanding in the first place enables them to be able to start taking those actions to say, we as an organization are set in a society, in a ecosystem with many others around us, and we will benefit if they prosper. And so then that starting point, I think, immediately starts to surface these things in which way you can treat your suppliers well, because they're going to be better suppliers, to be able to nurture your customers as their own, the way in which they can work, and really the change that requires in the mindset. From there, I think the steps are almost obvious, and it's really just being able to. I suppose my personal focus is around individuals and their potential, and we of course need to focus on health and basic poverty and basic needs, but what I see is incredibly exciting is the potential for more of us to not just use more of our potential, but to be more truly ourselves. And I believe that we are all incredibly unique, far more than almost any of us realize. And for that ability to, in a big society where we're all taught and educated to be more and more similar, that we can discover our uniqueness, be truly ourselves, and our potential to be part of society and contribute to society. And that excites me enormously. Almost all of the action comes from vision. And when you have a vision, has a few characteristics. One is it is compelling. People can see something, they say, that is worth moving towards. But also, that is achievable. And so that, in a way, from here, the people at this conference have vision, that will be reinforced through this conference. And then it's really being able to communicate that to others so that others can see that it's not just complex and confusing and challenging and frightening, but that there is a vision, there are visions of potential positive futures that will compel them to action. And that's how the people on this, coming here to this conference, can have an impact far beyond the people.